Hello, hello, hello. Today we're gonna go over the warrior changes. We're gonna go over some combos, some add-on ideas. I spent a couple hours in the BA with Franco. We were messing around. We were trying to figure out what the best course of action is, especially now that we don't have the cancels anymore. We've already spoken about the cancels and things like that, but now we've got some extra utility in our kit. We have some things that are optional now. So one of the changes is the balance strike core. This is now a super armor on just everything. So if you guys are interested in having a super armor engage, solar flare naturally has a super armor, and if you're running the core balance strike, you also have a second movement skill with super armor. This basically enhances our engagement, so it makes it a lot safer. So we can do things like this and then, just kind of get in there and drop a super armor engagement and go for CCs and picks. This is just a pretty good large scale build in terms of just opening, being able to just sort of dash in, super armor, super armor, super armor, and then it follows through with a super armor, which now Reckless has a full super armor through the entire kit. So that's going to be really, really nice. So one of the coolest things that you can do is if you want to do short burst movement, right? So you could do solar flare, balance, and then you see how we do the Reckless, and then we can iframe with Reckless into the follow through. So that's something that is really, really nice now, is being able to Reckless, iframe, and then SA for an engagement. That's something that you can utilize to throw off opponents in case they think that, you're going to just kind of let it rip or something, which you can do that too. You could do something like, bink, bink, and then just fucking throw it, and then you'll have super armor through the entire engagement. That's something that I feel is going to be very valuable in large scale, assuming, that you have anybody to fight in large scale. And even like for AOS and stuff like that, that's also really optional too. And I mean, not that we have AOS on console, but maybe one day. Who am I kidding? We're never gonna get that. So that's just something that me and Franco were messing around with, just having super armor movement and just being able to kind of engage, disengage. And the cool thing about the engagement process now is that we can utilize the entire engagement and then drop our entire kit, get in and get out. So if let's just pretend I'm gonna bomb real quick and just dive into this ball, so I can go mink, mink, and then bam, boom, boom, drop my kit, 1, 2, hit everything, this, and then we're out, right? Like we have a super armor and forward guard disengage. So we have like this full SA forward guard combo drop that we can do in large scale. And then we can, as we do that, we can escape with the same skills that we engaged with. So once we're done with our combo drop, we just, just bam, bam, and then run away. There you go. And then you can just get out for free. It's a really nice in and out tool, super crazy. For large scale, I'd say our small scale got hurt a little bit more because we don't have skills like ground smash anymore, that CC, chopping kick. We can't use this to CC anymore. So we lost a lot of core 1v1 skills that allowed us to catch very easily in the ones. So I'd say that our dueling got hurt a little bit, but our large scale got a lot better. Not that it really matters because it's not like we're fighting anyway, so who cares? The next thing that I want to bring up is we got a couple other things. So grave digging, this is no longer a bound, it is now a knockdown. So you can do something like this, and then you see how it's a knockdown, and you can follow up with reckless, which is another knockdown. Very good for keeping targets on the floor. I would say that's one of the more viable things that you could do if you want to try and fight a class that doesn't have a grab. So if you're doing 1v1s, right, this makes the most sense, because then you could just follow up with stuff like this, just kind of go into the usual bread and butter stuff, and then you go for the down smash perhaps if you really want to. So that one's not bad for kind of the dueling scenario. I'd still say balance is probably better, but if you're fighting a class that does not have a grab, this is a really, really good catch tool, because it's one, you're super armored, which our super armors got empowered, so we're much tankier in the SA trade. So it's going to be very hard for a lot of people to trade this, and we can just kind of throw it for free, and we're not really going to die in that at all. It's going to take a lot for people to kill us in our super armors, especially if you're running a tankier build. So that's something to consider. It's also really good just as an engagement tool. So if you wanted to just dive in and just kind of drop that, and then do this and stuff like that, so you can kind of get in there and drop that. I wouldn't recommend using balance, because you can't go as far with it because you don't have SA, so you have to be careful with it. You can use it. I mean, I use, you know, as like the SA on Solar Flare. I think it by itself is okay. It's just a matter of positioning and finding the right moments to use it. The thing about Balance Core is that you can go further and you can kind of protect yourself a bit better. Not only that too, but if you wanted to just monkey out and just like engage on somebody, right, you could just, you know, something like that. And if you have the SA core, unless they have a grab, I mean, you're not going to get hit out of it outside of desync. So that's another reason why it's kind of a guaranteed grab sort of thing if you want to be accurate with the grab. But just grave digging in general is a great CC tool for large scale, because you look at the range on that, we can knock down quite a few targets. And I mean, we can follow up with Reckless too. So we have 2 KDs in our kit now in Awakening that are reliable and very optimal for just comboing and keeping targets on the floor, especially since like Warrior now is kind of more just a brawler, bruiser, support kind of character. So he doesn't do as much damage. We lost a lot of damage for the most part. Like Pulverize, this got nerfed, so we got to be careful and, you know, choose our fights wisely. Fighting another DR heavy target is going to be very difficult. So in large scale, you're going to want to pick your targets accordingly. And if you're not trying to get any picks yourself, then your job is to put targets on the floor and then keep them there long enough so that way your team can follow up and, you know, do damage. That would be the optimal way to play him. Now, I would say is play more for the assist and play for your team and let the actual DPS characters do what they're meant to do. It sucks, but like kind of Warrior was already like that, and I already played him like that anyway. Like once you're in a bigger guild and you're a part of a guild where they have a ton of DPS characters that just do way more damage than you, it's more optimal to play off of them and make sure that you can make plays happen and then let them just kill everybody. It's much easier to do that than try and, you know, kill 10 people by yourself, because Warrior just can't do that. We can fight 10 people and live, but we can't kill 10 people and fight, you know, at the same time. That's not going to work. Like we can dive into a ball and I can definitely tank a shit ton of things, but I'm not going to kill anybody. So if you're building like that, your job is not to be the star of the show. Your job is a supporting role. The other things I want to mention that I think is probably worth mentioning is the Solar Flare core. I don't necessarily think that this is ever going to make any sense, because it just gives you the stiffen back on Solar Flare, which I guess is okay if you want to do like combos and stuff like that, like something like this, like whatever, like you can do something like that if you really wanted to do it. I don't necessarily think that that's going to make a lot of sense. It doesn't really, there's just too much utility in Balance Strike, and there's going to be more use out of like grave digging. And Merciless and Pulverize didn't really change that much at all. So Pulverize got nerfed from a damage perspective, but the core still functions the same way. So if you want to knock people, you can use this, but I think at this point grave digging takes precedent over it, just because it has a super armor instead of a forward guard. So even though you can use Pulverize and whatnot, grave digging is just naturally better, because the problem with Pulverize is that the way we get our damage out is we use the 10% BSR, right? So if you have the core skill for Pulverize, that means you can't use the BSR version, because then you won't get the you won't get the, you know, not the bomb, the core skill. So that's gonna suck, and that's not, I don't think that's worth it. So it's better to just use this right here and then be able to follow up with something like this and then use the BSR to get damage out. I think that's gonna be more optimal. And as far as Merciless goes, like this is a very niche core. Like this is now very, I used to run this all the time because it was just like super good from a damage perspective, but now I don't think it has really any use anymore. Balance Strike is just infinitely better, and then on top of that, grave digging is just a better setup tool. It just like, adding a forward guard to this makes no sense when you can have SA movement or SA KD, right? Like it just, forward guard anything in this current meta is probably not optimal. So I'd say the best cores for PvP as a warrior currently is going to be Balance Strike #1 if you want to focus more on movement, and then if you want to focus on group play and try and set your team up for a lot of kills, grave digging will be the absolute best option. And the range, like I said, this range is massive. Like you can hit like both targets if you like time it right, or you're in the right area. I can actually hit both of these right here if I like, yeah, like this. Like you can hit both of these if you time it right, but I don't have the core. But yeah, for the most part, if you wanted to do group play, grave digging. If you don't want to do group play and you want to focus on movement, Balance Strike. The other cores, not really worth it. And as far as Frenzied Strike goes, that is still the main PvE core. You don't really want to use anything else other than that. So let's talk about add-ons. Okay, so add-ons are interesting right now because I feel like they're a little wonky because we don't have as much versatility from our cancels anymore. Overwhelm, in my personal opinion, is still good to have, just because like I still use it a lot in my combos. Like if I catch like this, you know, whatever, that's still worth having the add-on. However, we're not really gonna use this in combos anymore. And what I mean by that is we're gonna use it, but we're not gonna use it in the way that you think. We're basically going to use it as a buff tool. We're not gonna use it as a as like an add-on proc, right? We keep the add-on proc for non-grab combos. So if we happen to hit like this, you know, do something along the lines of this, right? That's the reason you keep the add-on, but you're no longer going to use it in combos because you're just gonna fuck yourself, right? There's no reason to do that anymore. Because before, you would do something, you know, like this, and then you go bam, bam, and then you would block cancel, overwhelm, and then like grave dig, slashing, ankle break, pulverized tempest. You do something along those lines, right? You want to maximize your damage by hitting overwhelm, proccing add-ons, as well as proccing the 10% down attack. So, you know, you would do like this, this. So there you go. Yeah, you would do something along those lines originally. You could still technically do that if you really want to, but it's a bit risky. I don't think it's worth it because you can't block cancel into anything, so the animation is longer. So you can try it, and if you're feeling comfortable, like it's safe to do in the 1v1s, but in large scale, block canceling was very necessary to get our damage out there as quickly as possible, and now we can't do that anymore. So this is very risky to do in general for a combo, so you just don't want to do it as much. So back to the add-ons here. Overwhelm, you're mainly just keeping this as a tool to just utilize outside of a combo or outside of a grab combo, right? If you get a catch with overwhelm, that's really the only time you're ever going to use it, is if you're catching with it. You're not really going to incorporate it in combos that much anymore. The next thing is armor break. I didn't really change this too much. I think that this is fine for 1v1s, or just being able to just utilize this in a scenario where you can get a nice little cheeky catch and then just do as much damage as possible. It's also good for debuffing in case you want to get some follow-up. So you like, maybe you get a pick outside of the ball and one of your teammates follows up. Maybe you're on flex, deflex, or something like that, and you want to debuff your opponent and then buff yourself. This minus 20 DP in this meta is definitely a big deal. And then not to mention, it also has minus 30 DP just innately in the ability. So this is huge. So you don't really want to change this too much. The next thing, pulverize. This is our ender skill for the most part. By the time you are using pulverized tempest, it's pretty much disengage time. If you didn't kill them with pulverized tempest at all, then for the most part, you are essentially like, that's it. Like once you've done that ability, it's time to move. You got to go, because this is going to be your main source of damage outside of grave digging and slashing, right? So we put movement speed and then down smash to keep targets on the floor. So the down smash is important in mine and Franco's opinion, because we want to keep opponents down as long as we physically can, especially in this meta where everybody is really, really tanky. So the longer we keep an opponent on the floor, just the better, right? That's just the absolute most important thing. And then whenever we want to disengage, right, in case we're doing our final hits and we're like, we use pulverized tempest, we want to have that movement speed so that way we can, you know, get out as quickly as possible. Let's say I get in, right? I hit this, and then you go boom, 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 this, move speed, and then we're out of here, right? Like we have the movement speed and we can disengage. Like I put so much distance between me and the opponent that I went after, right? So it's just much better to have that not attack speed, but the move speed, so that way you can move just as fast as you can to get out of there. And since it's an ender skill, you don't necessarily need to put anything crazy on it. It's just better to have it to move out. Even when you're healing too, if you're trying to heal off your opponents or something in order to just kind of move away, this is also good, just so that way you can get your heals off and then you have movement speed to disengage and reset. Obviously this is based on playstyle, so if you're a pulverized core user, you could potentially change this up, and this might be an opener for you, which is originally what it was for me because I use core pulverized. So this add-on for right now to me is an ender skill. I'm not really using it as an opener anymore since I'm not using core pulverized, so it doesn't make sense for me to put opening add-ons on pulp. It just doesn't, you know, if you're still using core pulverized, you should change change this add-on up for sure, since you're going to be opening with it or following up with it, so that way you can maximize your damage output. But for me, this is an ending skill. Like, this is the end of a combo or an end of a damage drop. So I want to have add-ons that allow me to either keep my opponent on the floor so I can keep doing damage, or I want to have add-ons on here that are going to keep me alive and allow me to disengage and then re-engage at a later time. The next thing is ankle break. The point of this add-on is a damage primer. We want to make sure we're using this to just prime as much damage as we physically can. So ankle break, for those of you that are maybe new warriors and unaware, ankle break has the ability to give us basically 100% crit. So as you can see on the left right there, we have 100% crit for 3 seconds, which that used to be 2 seconds now. So what you can do is whenever you're doing your combo, right, the moment you hit this ability, you do pulverize tempest and your damage is enhanced by a lot, because pulverize does not have any crit on it whatsoever. It's only in PvE and it's 50%, right? Outside of PvE, there is no critical hit rate at all. There's none. So whenever you prime with ankle break, you gain 100% crit for 3 seconds, and then you follow up with pulverize, so that way you're doing as much damage as you physically can. So the whole point of these add-ons specifically is to make sure that you're doing damage. So the down attack and crit damage, those are going to be the prime damaging skills to make sure that we're doing as much as we physically can. And then we're going to talk about overwhelm and how we can cancel this to maximize damage output. The next thing we're going to utilize here is reckless blow. This now has full SA on it, and even through the end of the animation, it'll be basically protected the entire time. So this is kind of an opening skill too, which I already showed you guys how you can open with that just by getting into here and then just dropping kit like this. So it's kind of your opener. So you want to have add-ons on this that are pretty good for opening skills. So if you're going to hit a ton of people, you're going to get human damage and you're going to get attack / casting speed, which is very important for warrior right now. We need as much of that as we can physically get. So reckless blow will give us our big damage from the human damage, and then we're also going to get attack speed, and that's going to be really, really nice. And then grave digging, this is our sort of protection. This is our like damage drop as well as our survivability too. So grave digging and slashing both got an update where our super armors in those specific abilities are much more beefy. So we're super tanky in our grave digging, which is why we put in the all DP plus 20 and then all DP minus 20. And because it's an AoE skill, if we engage with it, right? So let's say we just engage on a ball. Let's just go over here for a second. So I hit this, go into all of that, and I proc my DP, I proc DP down for my enemies, and then they're much weaker, right? So it just makes sense to put a DP down on that for large scale, because me and Franco are large scale players. We don't really do much else. Like we're pretty much always fighting in a group for the most part. We don't really do much like single target or dueling that much anymore, because the game's just kind of dead for the time being. So whenever we do have a fight, we're usually preparing for large scale, and that is the whole point of how we set up our add-ons, is how can we set up our team for big damage, and how can we set up our whole situation for doing as much to the enemy to down attack him or down smash him, debuff them, and how can we stay alive so that way we're being useful to our team. So that was a big part of grave digging, is the survivability aspect with the DP, and then the all minus DP to debuff our opponents. That is the idea behind the add-ons here. And as for the finishing notes here, let's go over the combo. So me and Franco kind of tested the combo for the time being, and this is what he came up with this combo, and it was I thought it was really good. Like the damage on it is actually nutty. So essentially what you're going to start with, right, you're going to grab, and then this is where things get tricky. So remember how I mentioned you're no longer going to be utilizing overwhelm in your combos. Yeah, you're not going to hit them with it, but you're going to cancel with it. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be overwhelming and then blocking immediately, like this. So you see how we canceled the animation to where it doesn't actually follow through and hit. The reason we do that is every time we use overwhelm, you'll see that we get our down attack bonus. So that is the whole point of that sequence, is we're going to do that and then follow up with armor break. So altogether it should look like this. If you do that, not only are you block canceling and still getting the overwhelm buff, but you're debuffing your opponent and proccing add-ons off of armor break. What you want to do is dash behind your opponent, and then there you go, something like that. You see how I got the buff? You'll know that you did it properly whenever you canceled it, and you'll see the little purple buff down below that you did it. It's going to take some time getting used to. Both me and Franco are still figuring out the kinks with it. It's definitely doable. It's just one of those things that it comes out so fucking fast that you just have to kind of like, there we go, we did it. And then we follow up with our damage here. And that is the new combo that you would want to do. Now you can do something a little bit more cheeky with it too. You can incorporate Merciless, so that way you can get the critical hit rate off of that, or the critical hit damage, I mean. So how that looks is put this. You see how I got all the buffs? And there you go. You can do something like that. So in order to do that, you're going to want to do Merciless immediately, and then you're going to block cancel, overwhelm, block cancel, armor break. Should look like that. That way you are proccing all of your buffs at once without having to worry about, you know, re-CCing your opponent, because unfortunately, like I said, since there's no more block canceling, you don't really want to use overwhelm and hit with this. Even though we have add-ons on overwhelm, it'll fuck your combo. So if we were to just naturally do it, right, let's say we do this, see how he gets floated. So if we don't land down smashes, they're going to get up faster, because floats are short CC timers. So you don't want to hit the float. And the same thing with Merciless, it is also a float, so the timer on the CC is going to be very minuscule, and you don't want to hit that. That is why me and Franco came up with the idea of using Mercy and then, you know, hitting everything like this. So that way we can get all of our buffs properly, and then we end with Pulverized Tempest Ground Smash, and then you just, you know, disengage, right? That's the idea behind the entire combo. It's basically just priming your damage, and it takes a little bit of time, and this is strictly like a 1v1 scenario. That would be the idea here. You don't really want to do that in large scale, because it takes too much time, right? So it's more if you are 1v1ing outside, right, and you want to, you know, hit something, and then you just do go into this, boom, boom. And the BSR is very important for Pulverize, because the ability comes out a bit slow, and if you don't use the BSR, you might not have enough time to get Tempest off in order to do maximum damage. Traditionally, the way it would work is you would do Reckless, Ankle Break, Pulverized Tempest, Grave Digging, Slashing. That was the traditional combo, but since we have the extended time on Ankle Break now, where it lasts for 3 seconds instead of 2 seconds, it gives us more time to use our other abilities and set up for better positioning. So in general, we'll do something like this. So they're still on the floor, and then this, and then we're out of here, right? Like that would be how you would do that. And the damage on that would be pretty good. Like that's pretty much the highest damaging combo that me and Franco could figure out. We were testing it, and essentially how it turned out is I was wearing 680 DR and he was around the same DR, and both of us could pretty much one combo each other. And like if we lived at all, it was basically just because we had so much HP, and we were left with maybe like 10% of our HP. If you're fighting a super giga DR, like 700 something, close to 700 DR target. So the fact that we can get a close to 700 DR target basically down to nothing, that is pretty good for us. And of course, we're going to talk about the crystal builds real quick. So the crystal builds that I'm currently using, this is my support tank build. This is where I've accepted I'm not going to kill anybody, and the only thing that I might be able to kill is some squishy targets. So this is what this build is for. It has no accuracy other than the hooms, and then the rest is just DR and HP stacking. And then the crystal in the middle here is a DR crystal. With this build, we are sitting at 661 DR, and then if we pop our block on, we go all the way up to 681. Mind you, I usually get the DR house buff, so you add an extra 15 DR on top of the 681. So we're sitting at around close to 695, 690 something, like 696. And then if you're popping elixirs and calc elixirs, you sit roughly at around 720 DR with this build specifically. And if you're a Kadri user, if you have enough AP to run a Kadri, like I've got 307, which is okay. It's not the best, but if I hit this Debo belt, it would put me at 309, which would allow me to have a pretty good bracket. And then this would give me naturally 682 DR, and then if we block cancel, we go up to 702. Factor in the calc elixir and the regular elixirs, you're sitting at like 730 DR pretty much. So that makes you incredibly tanky. All right, now the next crystal build is, this is kind of a hybrid damage build. So this one is where you're still tanky, you're not as tanky, but you're still tanky, but your damage is going to be far more noticeable. This is kind of group play where you're still tanky to do a ton of like supported utility, but you can also kill people yourself. You've got the human damage damage from the attack speed crystal. We've got the one red viper in here, so that way we can get more of the human damage. We have the KD resist, since we're not running L cars. That was going to mean like our grab is going to be less reliable because the L car resistance is not a factor in this, unfortunately. However, the knockdowns are going to be pretty consistent. So if you're running core grave digging, core reckless, or not core reckless, I'm sorry, just using reckless in general, or pulverize, your KDs are still going to be hitting consistently, which I would argue is more important in group play than anything else. So that is why you're running the ignore, knockdown, resist crystals. And then the rest is just kind of tank stuff, HP stacking. The reason that you still use the glorious crystals for max HP is because they give 850 each, and that's a really big thing, just because if you run this, the higher our HP pool, the stronger our block is. So that is why we still run the spec evas, even though they're not spec evas anymore, but that is the reason why we run them the way that they are. HP stacking is a giant thing, and once you're sitting at around 10k plus, like you're pretty much never going to have to worry about your block being broken outside of a Corsair or any of the other classes that have block breaking properties. So the next one is for caps. I haven't really messed with caps because here in Sacred we don't do cap content at all. We just, you know, we sit on T5s all day, so I haven't really had a chance to test around too many cap crystals, but this is what I was running originally, and since HP is capped out now, I don't think this is going to be viable. So I would honestly just say ignore this for the time being. This is not really going to be very good, and until I have adequate testing and mess around with it, this is probably not going to work. So don't copy this, but this is what I was running originally. This is the PvE setup for just regular PvE. If you're like grinding giants or something or whatever, you swap these out for back attack crystals if you're at trolls or Gyphins, etc. So anywhere that you need back attacks, you swap the corrupteds for back attack, and then if you don't need back attacks, you put back in corrupteds, and so on and so forth. And then the last one that I usually go with is this here, which is my bomb build. Now this one has a interesting kind of look to it, and the reason that me and Franco kind of enjoyed this a little bit is because we can still be really tanky with this. So if we turn back on our HP pool again, you can see that I still sit at around 9100 HP. That is a lot of HP for an RBF build. So this is great for just in general keeping our block as strong as physically possible. So that's basically like, I think I'm down maybe 800 HP from my normal tank build. So this one will still make our block really strong. However, if we get caught at all, we're going to probably get insta-killed because we have no other tank properties. Our DR is really poor. We're looking at 576. It's still a little tanky. We can SA trade decently well. We can do just generally well overall. However, we're not going to be tanky enough to survive a lot of things. So if, like, let's say a Guardian CCs us or we get grabbed by a Striker, etc., those are going to kill us very quickly. So I wouldn't even, like, just play very safe whenever you're bombing with the RBF. Only go in when you think you can get a kill. So those are just some decisions that you're going to have to make and sort of figure that out. But that's kind of everything for the Warrior. Those are the ideas and things that me and Franco played around with. I apologize that this video took it was a bit lengthy. It didn't really mean for it to be this long, but there was a lot of information and sort of an info dump, and I wanted to go over a lot of different things. But you know, hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions or any more extra knowledge that you guys would like to drop down below, by all means go for it, and I will talk to you guys later. Goodbye.